So, guys, I want to talk about the Raising the Bar, and this is one of my favorite episodes of South Park. And in this episode, it's really about American culture and the culture of shaming and the lack of shame, and then also just being supportive of people with disabilities such as obesity, and that argument of whether obesity is a disability or not a disability, and then what happens when we have a culture of exploiting or overly helping people who have things like obesity where it can be preventable by healthy diets or exercise. And what happens is that that opens with Kyle and Cartman both playing a game, and then what happens is that I think it's like they're playing like softball, and what happens is like Cartman, Kyle says, Cartman, you could be the catcher because you're fat. And I also think that this is very important too, because definitely when I grew up, fat shaming was completely normal. Like if there's a fat person, you call them a fat ass or a fat fuck. And sometimes, like you see a movie like Full Metal Jacket, that sometimes people had a mentality of if they had a fat friend or a fat relative or a fat kid, they may just be calling that person a fat ass or a fat fuck because they don't because the view of fat people back when I was a kid was that they're inconsiderate because they eat up all the food, that they're bumbling idiots, or that they're making the choice to be fat and unhealthy, and that's that really, But nowadays, people understand that that's not it's not a, to motivate people to be healthier. It's not good to bully or put people down, and that sometimes the people like who are bullying fat people are people who have problems with themselves. Really, like for example, like I work in a psych ward. Some of the really racist people are people with a lot of problems in their personal life. So maybe they're trying to. I think as one person said who was a counselor, maybe the reason why some people are hurtful to others is because there's things that they don't like about themselves, or maybe because they hate themselves. And the other thing about it is that I mean, I was just kind of smiling because I remember there was a kid that was like 8 or 9 years old. He was extremely racist, and he just wouldn't accept that that's true. He was very uncomfortable with himself, really. But it's kind of just like funny to see how he was kind of like just he didn't want to hear it, but he needed to hear it. But I digress. So what happens in the next scene is that Carmen accepts that he's a fat fuck, really, and then he decides to get a mobility scooter. So there's two things about it. That honestly he accepts that he's a fat fuck because honestly he got hurt by Kyle, and he got his feelings hurt by Kyle. But I also think that that's kind of another thing you see with a lot of people who are obese. That maybe one of the reasons why there's shamelessness, or they may engage or do things that are kind of like embarrassing or low self esteem, is because there's a lot of just like shame towards fat people, and then there's also like people always calling them hurtful names, really. And then also you look at somebody like Nikado Avocado, and other like very fat people. There's always stereotypes of fat people being bumbling and foolish, and sometimes when they do like ridiculous things, people are more willing to laugh at their ridiculousness. So sometimes there are people who like fit a role, really. Like honestly in the African American community there are many young black men that grow up to be rappers or criminals or other things like that because there's a societal stereotype and a societal role that's associated with black people. The same way with fat people, there are societal roles such as fat people taking advantage of disability, of their disability, and and then continuing to be unhealthy or even like being bumbling fools. So Carmen's kind of fitting the role that I think like society puts on him, but he's also making a personal choice. So he gets a rascal and he's riding around, and Kyle's kind of mad because he's like saying because Carmen's saying things like, if I want to go to Walmart or other places, I don't have to do anything but use my rascal. But use my rascal. I don't have to like use my legs at all and whatever. So you're seeing Cartman finding a new way to be lazy and fat. And then the next thing that Cartman does is that he wants to take a shit in Kyle's house and take a shit at Best Buy. And he has this very emotional speech about how he's not able to take a shit at Best Buy and all the humiliation he suffers. When you're seeing things like he goes to the front of the line multiple places and other things like that, really. So you're kind of seeing like how, he's encouraged to be obese, and he's encouraged to have a rascal because he knows that he can make a lot of money by having lawsuits about about lawsuits and I'm sorry guys, about he make a lot of money through lawsuits, and he can also get sympathy and make people feel sorry for him. So he's almost encouraged to kind of keep that bad behavior. And then also the insurance companies, they pay for his rascal and whatever, so obviously, the insurance companies make money somehow through that, through providing stuff for Cartman. And then also too, when you look at Disney and other places that or Walmart and other places that provide rascals for big people, or provide like special lines or special privileges for big people. They're also getting some money, and they're also getting some good publicity, saying like, okay, we respect people with disabilities and other things like that. So so it's almost like you're kind of encouraged to be obese because there's so many benefits. You can sue if somebody doesn't have something that's handicap accessible. You can also get sympathy, and you can also just get like a rascal or whatever through insurance. And then also companies look good for helping you out because it shows that they're pro people with disabilities, when actually there's a sense of enablism. And then that's kind of like what's happening with a lot of airports nowadays, where a lot of people say it's discrimination if somebody's so fat that their ass takes up, 2 seats or 3 seats or 4 seats, or if they're like, okay, well, I can't ride because I can't fly because it's unfair for other people like, who learn to control their weights and exercise and whatever. Like, why should like people miss their flights because you have one big fat ass who wants to fly, and then they're so heavy that they have to like have to put less people on board. And then I also kind of think that one thing that gets overlooked is the reason why a lot of people call fat people fat asses or fat fucks or fat bastards is because usually what gets associated with fat people is being inconsiderate. Like, especially in this episode, how they talk about how there's a lot of money by taxpayers being to make rascals, and then also make rascals cow tipping proof and other things like that. So that's why a lot of people just have a lot of fat shaming, because there's always that association. That's the big stereotype about fat people, is that they're inconsiderate. Like, everybody has to pay extra taxes. You saw the episode of the 1% in South Park, where everybody has to give their recesses, and they have to do extra exercises because Cartman brought down the school average. And then also the other thing is that if someone has a healthy weight, they have to wait in line while fat people and other people on rascals go to the front of the line. So like, a lot of people also have that mentality of why should I pay the price for being healthy, and other people pay the price, and other people get advantages for not being healthy. And then it's like everybody has to like it's going to be tolerant, but we're also tolerating double standards. We're also tolerating what can be interpreted as inconsiderate, and in some cases it is inconsiderate. you know so that's always important. And then I also then the next part of the episode is Honey Boo Boo, and there's a lot of different things I want to say about Honey Boo Boo. That I think that first of all, the point of Honey Boo Boo and Fatty Doo Doo, which is Cartman, is just to kind of say to the audience that one of the issues of fat people being accepted and obesity being accepted is how people make celebrities out of people like Honey Boo Boo. And I think that if I'm right, like she was like in a beauty queen. I think she wanted to be a beauty queen and she didn't win, but she had her own television show. So I think there is a sense of saying, you know what, even though she doesn't fit, the perfect woman image of a slender, blonde hair, blue eyes, white girl, because she has some weight on her body. That is inspiring. For her to kind of say like I don't fit the typical image, but I'm still going to be out here. That's inspiring. But if you kind of like put the camera on her mom and their lifestyle, it's nothing but obesity and gluttony and just bad behavior. It goes from being inspiring to being shameless. And I think that that's kind of what the issue is. That sometimes when you put a microcosm on people, you you may say, okay, they may be inspiring in one instance, but they may be shameless in a lot of under other instances. And then it kind of goes down to what happens with Token is that Token exploits Cartman by filming him and saying, okay, instead of a documentary about obesity, I'm just going to show him as a bootleg Honey Boo Boo. The same way you have Pawn Stars on the History Channel, then you have Hardcore Pawn. It's just a bootleg. And I also kind of think that the reason why Token does that is to make money, but then he kind of says something about like how on the Learning Channel you have Honey Boo Boo. I don't remember what channel I don't remember what channel Honey Boo Boo was on, but if it was like Learning Channel or History Channel or another like or another like educational channel, why are you having a show of somebody with obesity and bad eating habits on it? Are you trying to teach the youth to have that, or they don't care about the educational purpose of it? They care more about the ratings and whatever. So it kind of has that hypocrisy to it, you know. But it also kind of shows that that's the main reason why people like Honey Boo Boo and other people get a lot of attention, is that because people want to see it, and then also companies will want to show it because obviously it's not about ethics, it's about making money. That's just how the world works. As they said, the master race, the master skin color is not black, white, or yellow. The master race and the master skin color is green, the green of money. So that's why companies would kind of do that, or companies will say, okay, maybe the History Channel has Honey Boo Boo, but has nothing to do with history, or the Learning Channel may have nothing to do with. They may film Honey Boo Boo, has nothing to do with education. So we're still gonna like air it anyway because it's profits before people. So that's unfortunate. And then also, like at the end of the episode, they showed James Cameron going to the ocean and raising the bar, really. And I think that's kind of a metaphor for saying that usually what happens in our society is that I think that when you see people get attention for shameless behavior, like Nikado Avocado, it inspires people to be shameless. And then when you see people like Mr. Beast, who did that project where he built so many wells in Africa, and he has game shows where he helps people, and he actually has people who have inspirational stories and he gives them money and whatever. Or something like on Hell's Kitchen where there's a chef that had a lot of potential, and what happened was he lost, but he was like this young kid that could grow and be something, and Gordon Ramsay used his resources to help his family out and just to make him somebody. Those always inspire everybody to work hard and raise their standards, because it's like saying, okay, well, maybe it takes an inspirational person or more inspirational people who persevere to a level where the media and the press put attention on them. That kind of inspires people to raise the bar, really. So it's almost like, to fight the trends of shameless behavior, we need to get to a point of looking at things that are inspiring and putting attention into that. But, it's always important to have that yin and yang. You can't kind of always have inspirational stories or that type of, mediocrity is mediocrity and shamelessness is shamelessness, because then you create a culture of, okay, then you look at something like in the 1980s, like a lot of television shows were very wholesome, and then The Simpsons, Jerry Springer, Attitude Era all came out because people were so sick of like the wholesomeness. Or you look at a lot of TV shows in the 50s and 60s and movies that had a lot of ethics, and then the Hays Code got overturned. So sometimes what happens in our society is we're so for, one side, like ethics and morals and standards, and then what happens is the counterculture becomes popular, and then what happens is the counterculture and the transgressive culture that becomes unpopular, then like ethics comes. So we always have to kind of get to that mix of tolerating both and tolerating both at one time, really. We can have our Mr. Beast with his inspiring philanthropy stories and his games that encourage philanthropy, and then we can also have Nikado Avocado. But I also kind of think that definitely, obviously it's not good that we live in a society that exploits people with disability and health issues, or kind of rewards bad behavior. Honestly, there are people who are obese and they can't lose weight easily, and it's because of how they eat, and now they're at a point where they can't go back. And there's also genetics, and there's also like people have psychological issues where food is, or food and other things are something that makes them feel comfortable. And then there's also people like me who, I work a lot of hours. I'm really involved in my social media and other things like that. So am I going to, eat something healthy when I have a very busy schedule? No. So there are people that you have to kind of be a little bit understanding to if they become obese. And so you can't always have that attitude of, okay, all obese people are fat fucks or they're inconsiderate or whatever. We have to be understanding, but definitely when we kind of see somebody being shameless or whatever, really, then there has to be a point of just saying, okay, maybe we need to relook at them and debate their ethics. Like definitely, I did a video a while back called Drugs, and it's about like how I made a greasy hamburger with donuts or whatever. But if I was doing videos every single day about this greasy meal or whatever, or going to eat unhealthy food every single day, people could talk on my YouTube channel saying like maybe I should work on going to vegetarian places or other healthy things, or well, I'm accumulating a lot of views, so maybe I need to start going to healthy places to encourage my viewers that it's not just fat and unhealthy foods out there. It should be healthy food. So I think it's always good to question the ethics of people, and also kind of question if we live in a society that almost rewards too much of bad behavior. But at the same time, we can't overly tolerate we overly tolerate like high standards or low standards. We need to tolerate both, really, and we also just need to always aim to be better people and stuff. We know that we're doing something wrong with our health, or we know that we're exploiting the system, or we know that there's so much attention on somebody doing something unethical. It's always good to call out scrutiny or be like, okay, well, there's other things that people should be looking at as well. So it's definitely a controversial episode.